Welcome again, Maxim here, and in this video I will explain to you what is damage attenuation and how it works. This algorithm is responsible for reducing damage dealt to the bosses, including Kuva Liches, Sisters of Parvos, and Archons. I will focus on these opponents because during these boss fights you will face the most advanced versions of this algorithm. But these are not only opponents on which it is used. The damage attenuation algorithm is applied to Prosecutors, Tampers, Masters, Kuva Trolls and Liches, Sisters of Parvos, Hounds, Corpus Empyrean units, Rachnoids and part of units on Orb Valleys, Bursas, Treasurer, some of infested units on Cambion Drift, Juggernaut and Behemoth, Lephantis, Hemocide, some Eximus units, Disruption Demolists, Necromex, Amalgam units, Stalker and Acolytes, Sentients, including Eidolons, and of course Archons. The problem is that almost each of these enemies may have their own unique version of damage attenuation. While most of these units are not a major problem as long as you have something strong with you, or the entire team will join the fight, missions with Liches, Sisters and Archons can be quite a challenge. I will use them as an example to discuss how this algorithm works and how to deal with it. Let's start with the main assumptions of the algorithm. Attenuation can work in two ways. 1. Simply reduce your default damage output. The formula creates limits of the maximum amount of damage per instance. This attenuation applies to most of the previously mentioned enemies. However, when fighting Liches, Sisters and Archons, you will encounter the second layer of this algorithm. The more times you hit or shot the opponent, the more resistant he becomes to what you are doing with him. Here we have a limit of damage per second. Now look at the Sister health bar. At first, the damage was much greater than a second later, even though I did not change anything and was aiming the same body part. First you can see large and quick loss, and then it noticeably slows down. This is what the second layer of attenuation does. Okay, let's first discuss how the whole algorithm works on Sisters and Liches. The damage dealt to these enemies is reduced, and you are only able to damage them up to a specific value. You cannot exceed this threshold by default. However, critical damage is calculated above this cap, so weapons with high crit damage will be very effective here. So, mods for crit chance at damage, that's the first thing. Secondly, multi-shot. It is very important how many bullets hit the opponent at the same time. Each of them is another portion of damage, although very limited, but the more separate damage instances at the same time, the better. I will go into more detail about it in a moment. It is also important where you shoot. Headshots are very desirable. The headshot itself has a ×3 damage multiplier, but when hitting this part of a body with a critical hit, an additional ×2 multiplier appears in the calculations. So in the end, headshot crits has a ×6 multiplier. Plus, remember that Liches are Greeniers and Sisters are Corpus, so you can use faction mods. Going forward, remember to adjust the appropriate element on your weapons. Check your opponent's screen to see what they are susceptible to. But don't forget to also look at resistances. To make things easier, you can use some armor reduction method. Additionally, you may have viral damage in some weapon, because this status amplifies damage to the health of the target. However, here's an exception. On Liches and Sisters, only 4 statuses of the same type can be applied at the same time. So, by applying viral status 4 times, you deal 175% more damage. It also works that way on Archons. About some other statuses, you can use Slash, for instance from Glaive Prime Detonation, alternative attack. Unfortunately, Sisters and Liches at higher levels are not very susceptible to this type of a weapon. Damage gates are set too strictly. Sniper rifles aren't particularly effective either. Weapons with a high fire rate, a good base and critical damage, or a powerful multi-shot are better. Arcanes that increase those stats are also very welcome. This is because of the second layer of damage attenuation, which reacts to how long you keep firing. You saw it at the beginning of the video. So how to deal with it? There are 2 ways to do it. First, a good weapon with mentioned mods and with some Warframe that will increase your damage. I will discuss the characters when I move to the Archons. Shoot with breaks. Watch how quickly attenuation will start to significantly reduce your damage. Stop firing for a second and resume it, and so on until the end. The second method is to surprise the algorithm. Dealing massive damage in one shot won't give the second layer of attenuation time to react. This is where we talk about multi-shot, but also shotguns. They don't shoot bullets, but many pellets, so it's almost like a rifle with a multi-shot. Each projectile will deal some limited damage, but with a large multi-shot, there can be a really huge amount of projectiles. Kuva hack, for example. If you use the alternate fire with the multi-shot mods, it will fire from all 4 barrels at once. This will literally create a wall of pellets that can wipe out even a level 5 sister or lich. I will add, however, that the second layer of attenuation itself is not a big problem, as long as you are able to survive the fight and you have a strong enough weapon with the proper build. Incarnon type weapons work very well with such fights. Regular Incarnons from Cavalero, such as Fenmore, or those that you can create using Incarnon Genesis from Circuit. From this group, I recommend Burston, Torrid or Atomos. Okay, but what about the Archons? Why I don't mention them? That's because damage attenuation works a little differently on them. Liches and Sisters can be taken down with one shot. Archons, however, cannot be dealt with one shot. This does not mean that they are significantly more difficult opponents, because on them, attenuation has higher damage limits per single instance and per second. But critical damage, which was calculated above the damage limits on Liches and Sisters, on Archons is calculated under these limits. Both of these things translate into smaller possible portions of damage to the opponent, but you can effectively fight with a larger group of weapons, not only few of them that were in so-called meta. Each player will be able to deal higher damage and not just someone who is an actual DPS in a team. So overall, the fight should be way shorter. Remember, however, that the more people in a squad, the more health Archon has. About the mods, it is same as before. Crits, multi-shot, specific element. Here you can also apply a maximum of 4 instances of statuses at once. When playing against Archons, use Slash or and Toxin. If you use corrosive damage in your builds anywhere, it will not reduce your opponent's armor, if that's what you are hoping for. Generally, apart from any possible bugs, you will not be able to remove Archon's armor. Alternatively, you can slightly increase the damage with the Vigorous Swap mod. Quickly change weapons for a second and you will have additional 165% damage for 3 seconds. Back to the elements. Slash is much more effective here, because of increased damage limits. Rhino, for example, is able to quickly deal with Archons by throwing and detonating Glaive Prime. As for other weapons, Incarnons will also be effective here, even more than on Liches and Sisters. I also ran a few tests. Godfa Prime is effective, that was easy to predict. But I was able to quickly defeat Archon with just Kuva Nukor. Or even melee weapons. If, for example, you are invisible and Archon does not make any area attacks, you can easily defeat him at close range, if only he doesn't fly away somewhere. You could do it, for example, with Ivara. But this Warframe also has the ability to increase damage by using Navigator or by standing on the line, if you have Augment for Quiver. As for Warframes, you will need those that provide some damage bonuses. Some skills for survivability are also welcome. I've already mentioned Rhino, it's a good choice, especially if you want to rely on slash damage, but works well with other weapons too. Volt will also be a good option. Shield and the ability to add extra electric damage on yours and weapons of your allies, using an augment for the first skill. Additionally, you can make an overshield with the augmented 4th skill. Sarin may be useful in the fight with Amar, as she also increases damage by having an augment for the first skill. It adds a toxin to the weapon. In addition, you can use Mirage, Chroma, Harrow or Zaku. The latter one can add void damage to the weapon with the Zata Whisper. This one works great with Incarnon weapons. Nevertheless, you don't have to go with Zaku to use this skill. It can be at your general disposal via the Helminth system. There you will also find several other ways to increase damage. Rhino's Roar will increase your weapon and status damage. Mirage's Eclipse will reduce received damage or increase damage dealt, depending if you type or hold the skill button. Grendel's Nourish will give you a damage bonus, viral damage on all weapons, and increase energy gain from all sources. There are also skills that, with an augment, will give you additional elemental damage. Electricity from Volt or Radiation from Oberon. You can see the guide to the Helminth system in the upper right corner of the screen. It is also in the description. Click it! Damn it! If we are talking about increasing damage, don't forget about operator schools. Zenoric will give you energy and 20% ability strength, or Madurai can increase your damage by 1000% for a few seconds, or give you 40% more ability strength. And don't forget to add some good arcanes, either for Warframes, for instance Arcane Rage, or for weapons, for instance Primary Deadhead. These are just examples, there are many possibilities. Check what do you have and test it on missions. At the end, I will mention one more character that is great on Archon hands, and that is Titania. With an augment for the first skill, she can be lightning fast, which also increases your attack speed and fire rate. Additionally, if you add some increasing damage skill from Helminth, you will be able to defeat Archon very quickly. See for yourself. The first phase takes just a few moments, then fly as fast as you can to open the gate, and the rest is basically a repeat of the first phase. You can defeat Archon in 3 to 4 minutes. And that's all in this video. Good luck with Liches, Sisters and Archons. If you have any questions about damage attenuation or any other Warframe topic, go to the comment section or visit one of my streams on Twitch. Link is in the description. See you next time. Bye.